The Bible of 1775 reveals controversial changes in the current Bible. Do you believe you know the truth about the Bible? What if I told you that the most influential book in history has been altered to control what you think, believe, and even feel? A forgotten version from 1775 may contain secrets that institutions have tried to hide from us for centuries. Revelations that challenge everything we know about God, the apocalypse, and our own connection to the divine. Why were some passages deleted? Who decided what you should know and what should be forgotten forever? Today, you'll discover the truth hidden in the Bible that they don't want you to know. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear could change your worldview forever. And be careful, it could shake your most deeply held beliefs. Share and subscribe to the Gaia Ascension channel for more content that challenges everything we have been taught so far. The 1775 Bible and its peculiarities. What if you hold in your hands a book so old that its pages carry not only the history of faith, but also the echoes of a world that tried to shape what people would believe? You probably have in your hands the 1775 Bible because it is one of those unique and rare artifacts. More than just a religious text, it is a portal to a past full of theological disputes, political manipulations, and intentional mysteries. To understand the relevance of this Bible, we need to go back in time. In 1775, the world was in turmoil. Religious wars and independence movements were redefining borders and power. It was in this context that this version was published, and it was no accident. During this time, ecclesiastical authorities had absolute control over what was included or omitted from the scriptures. Any change could mean the difference between submission and revolution. But what makes this Bible so unique? First, some passages appear completely differently from the versions we know today. For example, in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 36, the classic phrase, "But of that day and hour no one knows," is annotated with a marginal interpretation, suggesting that certain chosen ones could have access to this knowledge. Who were these chosen ones? And why was this note deleted in later editions? In addition, there are differences in crucial passages. In the book of Genesis, the creation of Adam and Eve is described in detail that does not appear in modern translations, suggesting a more complex relationship between God and humanity. One detail that may go unnoticed is a reference to the existence of other peoples created before Adam. Is this a simple theological interpretation or a hint of greater secrets about the origin of humanity? And it doesn't stop there. In the book of Revelation, where we often find prophetic and difficult to interpret symbolism, the 1775 Bible presents descriptions that are more literal and less metaphorical. One striking example is in chapter 13, where the figure of the beast is described not only as a mystical being, but with direct parallels to governments and political systems of the time. This detail was later removed. But why? These peculiarities raise intriguing questions. Were these changes made to preserve the truth or to hide it? And who exactly was behind these decisions? Religious authorities? Influential monarchs? Or was there an even deeper agenda at play? Brace yourself, because as we move forward, we will explore the devastating impact these changes had on society and how they shaped the future of faith. The apocalypse as transformation, not catastrophe. When you hear the word apocalypse, what comes to mind? Destruction, chaos, the end of everything. But what if I told you that this word has been distorted over time? That in fact, the original meaning of the apocalypse was not about the end of the world, but about the awakening of humanity. The word apocalypse comes from the Greek apokalypsis, which means revelation or unveiling of something hidden. But over the centuries, religious leaders and interpreters of Scripture have transformed this concept into a synonym for catastrophe. Why? perhaps because the true meaning of the apocalypse did not favor the power structures of the time. In its original context, the apocalypse was seen as a moment of truth, a point at which everything that was hidden would be revealed, and humanity would finally understand its place in the universe. Think about it, a spiritual awakening where barriers between the divine and the human disappear. But how did this turn into fear and destruction? During the Middle Ages, the apocalypse was widely used as a tool of control. Fear of the impending end was constantly stoked, both to maintain social order and to ensure that the masses remained submissive to religious authorities. The 1775 Bible, however, strikes a different tone. It describes the apocalypse with less emphasis on physical destruction and more focus on spiritual transformation. In Revelation 21, we find the description of the New Jerusalem, not as a physical place that would replace the old world, but as a heightened state of consciousness, a place where there is no more suffering and humanity is reconciled with its divine essence. This vision aligns with the idea that the apocalypse is a rebirth, not a condemnation. Now consider the modern world. How often do we hear about the end times? Wars, pandemics, climate crises, all are interpreted as signs of impending doom. But what if we are actually experiencing an apocalypse in the original sense? A global revelation, where old systems collapse so that something new and better can emerge. The message of the apocalypse, then, is not one of fear, but of opportunity. A call to look beyond the apparent chaos and recognize that we are living in a pivotal moment of transformation. A time when every choice we make contributes to the kind of world that will be revealed. But if the apocalypse is an awakening, why has this message been hidden or distorted for so long? Who would benefit from perpetuating fear rather than hope? In the next section, we will explore how alterations to the Bible have shaped our perception and how we can begin to unravel these manipulations. Direct relationship with the divine, breaking with the intermediaries. For centuries, we have been taught that in order to reach God, we need intermediaries, religious leaders, temples, and specific rituals. But what if I told you that this was not the original message of the Scriptures, and that the true connection with the divine is within each of us? One of the most revolutionary messages that we can find in the 1775 Bible is the idea that we do not need intermediaries to connect with God. This belief, so simple and liberating, challenges the structure that many religious institutions have built over the centuries. During the period in which this version was published, the relationship with the divine was deeply linked to the authority of the churches. They held absolute power over what was considered right or wrong, who could be saved, and how that salvation should be achieved. But the 1775 Bible brings interpretations that emphasize individuality and direct access to the sacred. For example, in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 6, we find the phrase, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." In many translations, this passage is used to justify the idea that only through Jesus and the institutional church would it be possible to reach God. But in the 1775 Bible, there is a marginal note that suggests that the way represents an internal journey, a spiritual transformation that each individual must undertake for himself. If we think about it, this interpretation changes everything. It shifts the power away from religious institutions and places the responsibility squarely on the individual. After all, if each of us carries the divine spark, why would we need intermediaries to access it? This view not only challenges ancient dogmas, but also resonates with contemporary spirituality. Today, we see a growing number of people seeking faith outside of traditional churches. Meditation, connection with nature, alternative spiritual practices, all of these reflect a search for something more authentic and less institutionalized. But why has this message been so stifled over the centuries? Who would benefit from keeping people dependent on a religious system rather than empowering them to find God within themselves? The answer, once again, lies in control. In the next section, we'll explore how control over faith has shaped history and why traditional doctrines like original sin and hell have been used to create fear rather than empower believers. Brace yourself, because what follows will challenge your beliefs even further. Questioning traditional doctrines, fear as a tool of control. How would you feel if you discovered that some of the most deeply held beliefs about your faith were created not to free your soul, but to control it? What if concepts like original sin and hell were less about salvation and more about fear? Throughout history, fear has been a powerful tool, and within Christianity, concepts like original sin and hell have been widely used to ensure obedience and submission. But was this the original message of Scripture, or were these ideas shaped to serve specific interests? Let's start with original sin. This doctrine claims that all humanity is condemned because of Adam and Eve's sin in Eden. But was this interpretation part of the original message? In the 1775 Bible, we find nuances that suggest that sin is not inherited as guilt, but rather seen as a state of ignorance or disconnection from the divine. This difference is significant. Rather than condemning humanity from birth, this view presents us as beings with the potential for reconnection and spiritual growth. However, the idea of inherited sin became an effective way to ensure that people sought redemption exclusively through religious institutions. What about hell? The idea of a place of eternal torment is one of the most terrifying in Christian theology. However, historical analysis suggests that the most graphic descriptions of hell came not from the Bible, but from later interpretations. The 1775 Bible, for example, presents hell as a metaphor for separation from the divine, not as a literal place of physical torture. Now think about the impact these doctrines have had over the centuries. They created generations of believers who lived in fear of eternal judgment, fear of making mistakes, fear of questioning, fear of straying from the control of the church. And the most interesting thing is that even today, many of these ideas are still used to shape behaviors and beliefs. What if the real purpose of these doctrines was to keep people dependent on a power structure? After all, a person who fears damnation is much easier to control than someone who believes in their own ability to connect with the divine. In the next point, we will delve even deeper. If fear was used to shape beliefs, how has it influenced our society and culture over the centuries? And how can we begin to unravel these manipulations and reclaim our spiritual freedom? Get ready, because the next step is as revealing as it is liberating. The future of faith, challenges and possibilities in the search for truth. If everything we have discussed so far changes to the Bible, the use of fear as control, and the direct relationship with the divine challenges our deepest beliefs, what does this mean for the future of faith? We are at a critical juncture where important questions need to be asked. What will tomorrow's spirituality look like? And more importantly, how can we free ourselves from the shackles of the past? One thing is certain: the world is changing. More and more people are questioning what they have been taught and seeking answers beyond traditional institutions. Spiritual movements, alternative practices, and even a reconnection with ancient traditions are emerging as new ways to explore the divine. But to understand the future, we need to look to the past. For centuries, faith has been shaped by religious and political leaders who have used Scripture as tools of power. The 1775 Bible shows us that many of these decisions were based on specific agendas, whether to maintain social control or to reinforce convenient narratives. So how can we ensure that the future of faith is more authentic? The answer may lie in decentralization. Imagine a world where faith is not dictated by hierarchies, but rather by the personal search of each individual. A world where the divine is found in nature, art, human connection and meditation, rather than just within specific temples or rituals. The 1775 Bible, with its quirks and hidden messages, can be seen as a symbol of this search for authenticity. It reminds us that faith should not be static, but dynamic, a constant invitation to question, learn, and evolve. Perhaps the true purpose of Scripture is to provoke us to think, rather than simply obey. The future of faith will not be about who has the right answers, but about who is willing to ask the right questions. Questions like, what is the purpose of my life? How can I truly connect with the divine? And what does it really mean to live with purpose and compassion? If there's one thing we've learned from this journey, it's that truth can never be completely hidden. It always finds a way to emerge, whether in ancient manuscripts or in modern hearts. So the big question that remains is, are you ready to seek the truth and live by it? Now that you know these secrets and insights from the 1775 Bible, the question is, what will you do with this information? The search for truth is an ongoing journey, and each of us has the power to question, reflect, and evolve. If this video brought you new perspectives, like, share, and subscribe to the Gaia's Ascension channel. Leave a comment. What was the revelation that surprised you the most? Let's continue to unravel the hidden mysteries of the past together to understand our future.